Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of my podcast. My name is Dunya. This is a podcast series where I am talking to my friends who are also living abroad, their experiences from life abroad. And I also have a channel, Dunya in Spain, where beside my podcast, I am also recording vlog episodes about my life, mostly in Spain as a foreigner, but also many other experiences. In this episode, I have another dear friend of mine, Laura, who is originally from Alaska in the United States. And she's been living in Vienna for close to, in Austria for about 10 years. Now, she first came to study at the University of Natural Resources and Life Sciences, aka BOKU, in Vienna. And then she studied her PhD partially at BOKU, partially at the institute called Wassercluster Lunz in Lunz am See, where we actually met. And now she works in science communication and promotion back in Vienna. Hi, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you for being guest in my podcast. So did I introduce you well? Would you like to add something?
I just want to add one thing. And then in between my master or part of my master's, I actually spent a year in Sweden as well. And then I came back
Cool.
to Austria.
Amazing.
That's it.
Well, actually, yeah, we can touch that actually at some point. It's good to know. I thought so, but that you were somewhere abroad, but I could not remember exactly what was it. Great. So in this episode, we will talk about what it really means to build a life abroad, from cultural shocks and academic challenges to long-term integration and identity. And before we continue, I would like to ask you to please subscribe because it means a lot. Thank you very much. Okay, so Laura, you grew up in Alaska, no?
Yes.
Coming from Alaska to Europe, to Central Europe, to Vienna, it has been for sure quite a change. So what motivated that move? How did you come to idea to study abroad at first place?
Well, I think I was always sort of looking for adventure. So I grew up in Alaska. I studied in another state. And during that time, I also did a study abroad in India. And then after I finished my bachelor's degree, I moved back to Alaska and I was working up there. And I was really enjoying my job, enjoying my life. You know, Alaska's all about the great outdoors. But I sort of had this itch for a bit more adventure. So I started looking into master's programs. And then I had another friend suggest, like, well, you could also look in Europe. And I'm like, I wouldn't mind going to Europe for 2 years. And then, yeah, here I am 10 years later. So it was a little bit convenience also because of the cost of higher education in the US and a little bit, or mostly, I would say, intruder. That's how it started.
Great. And how did you eventually end up in Vienna? Why Vienna, of all places in Europe?
Well, I was initially looking, so my bachelor's degree was in chemistry, but I wanted something a bit more broad because I was working in environmental science in Alaska. So I wanted a little more environmental, like more general focus than pure chemistry or pure biology. And so I think I started by Googling environmental science masters in Europe, and I started picking through universities. And I actually found the university in Sweden first, the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, SLU, in Uppsala.
Which place? So
Uppsala. And I also spent time at their campus in Umeå too, which I would recommend because it's really cool up there. But yeah, so I found that. But then I was like, oh, if I could go to Vienna first and then go to Sweden and write my thesis there. So that was kind of how it started. It was just Googling and searching, and I found this program which is really called Environmental Science Masters in Europe, and I did that, and it was great. I had a really good time. I met a lot of nice people and got to explore 2 different universities.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So then you eventually chose Vienna. So how was this transition go? Like the paperwork and stuff?
Well, I think prior to the move to Vienna, I had never been more organized in my life. I am not a very organized person. I mean, you can see the mess behind me. I'm not a very organized person, but before Vienna, I was extremely organized. I wanted to make sure my visa stuff would all work. And coming abroad, I remember having all my papers out on my kitchen table to make sure I had all the correct documents. And, I had all my stuff packed in boxes and I put it in my parents' garage. It's still there. Hopefully they don't remember that. And I put and I labeled the box. I was super organized. And then I get on the plane and I stop in Copenhagen to do the orientation for my master's program. And then I come to Vienna and I have a month before the classes start. And I basically land in Vienna and I'm like, I should have learned German. I was I was saying Guten Tag in Vienna, and you don't say Guten Tag in Vienna, you say Grüß Gott. Like, I really didn't even occur to me, because my studies were in English, that I mean, this is such an American view. I hate to say this, but like, I was like, I should have learned more. So I signed up for a German class, but I have to tell you, the first part was really a shock. Luckily, I had already met a few people at my orientation who were able to help me, like go apply for my visa. One friend invited me to his house for dinner with his parents, which was lovely. And yeah, that was sort of the start, but it was definitely like, okay, this is real. I could have prepared for this better. But when you're in it, you're in it. So you just go for it.
Yeah, this is actually a very good point. You wanted to have it everything under control, and then you realize that you forget something at the end. Like, some things are just simply out of control and emerge at the end. So you did not have any classes before? So when you arrived to Vienna, this was your first experience with German?
Yes. I mean, I'd done some traveling in Europe before, but
Yeah.
this was my first real experience. So because the orientation for my program, because it involved different universities, it was so early compared to Vienna's start time. I had this month. And then I had 2 weeks completely free, and then I had the German course that started. So I actually like did all my paperwork and did a very like Alaskan thing. I got on the train to Tyrol to go climb mountains because I was like, I am overwhelmed. I am scared. I don't have anything for 2 weeks. I need to go hike something, which is, I think Dunya knows, a very typical reaction from me when I'm stressed. So I did that and I had a lovely time. But yeah, I got into a German course, and that of course helped this. And it was really taught like a crash course. The phrases I needed to get around, to ask for the bus station, to order at a restaurant, stuff like this. So that was extremely helpful.
Also, to go back a little bit before you moving to Vienna, so what did your family and friends think about your move? What were their opinions about that?
I
How did
think
it feel also for you?
it was really difficult because by this point I'd been back home for 3 years. I left a boyfriend. I left a nice job. I left, I really uprooted my life to go, but I also felt it was something I really needed to do. And I think also my friends and family felt that I needed to do it. There are lots of reasons, and there's nothing against my hometown. I love my hometown. I love Alaska. But, there's some limitations to living that isolated, and also, some limitations to moving back to your hometown, which I think probably all the people watching this podcast probably feel at some point. And so I think no one was particularly surprised.
Mhm.
Parents are extremely supportive. And I think one of the huge advantages I had is that my parents, both before kids and with kids, had lived abroad for different jobs for short periods of time. Now they did it together, and they did it with, companies sending them abroad. So I kind of had the real privilege of knowing that it was like a possible thing that I could do, and I think they were extremely supportive. Again, looking back though, we've had lots of discussions about how hard that first month was, especially before my classes started, because I think I called home crying and like, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this, just to be really honest. I mean, it was just the initial like fear, and I think one thing we talked about is like, why didn't I ask someone to come with me? Like my mother would have loved to come for a trip to Europe to help me. And I didn't ask her. And we saw years later, a friend of hers helped her daughter move to Scotland, and she's like, why didn't you ask me to help me move? I was like, I didn't think about that, something to ask. So that's another thing about like moving abroad. If I did it again, I would ask for help. The worst they can say is no, or no, it's not
Mhm.
possible. But in general, I was coming from like a huge advantage that I had parents who lived abroad before. So
Yeah, that means a lot.
yeah.
Actually, it just came to my mind when I was talking to Tanya that she mentioned that she had her brother and his family in Vienna. I mean, she also moved from far away from Nicaragua, and for me, I did not have anyone actually, but I was not so far away. I mean, Austria from Serbia is not so far away, and I always had this feeling if I need to go back, I can go back. Like a long weekend, like 2 days, but I can go back. And did you know someone in Vienna? Did you have at least one friend or someone you just moved? Yeah, on your
I
own.
just moved, but again, I had the orientation. I had a friend living in Copenhagen. And also that's where the orientation for my studies were, because it also included University of Copenhagen. I didn't attend there, but so I actually met people from my studies. So when I got to Vienna, I knew people, but I had just met them. And I have to thank some of these people because they were some of the people that helped me. Like one of them invited me to the dinner, one of them went to the immigration agency with me. So I didn't go in having advantages, but I also went knowing that I would meet some people right away. But no, I didn't. And it was hard. It was
Yeah,
very hard.
yeah. This it's I can imagine that it was like yeah. So basically, what you would say that some kind of like for you kind of anchor. I don't know if I can call it like this, but it's like there were a couple of people that you knew right away when you moved, something like that. No.
Yeah, there were a couple of people that I met right away, and they I say a couple of them really um recognized that I needed the help. I mean, they really offered, and I have to say because, like I said, asking for help, I wasn't really ready to do that. And they really offered. Like one of them literally called me. It's like, do you want to come over to my parents' house for dinner? And then he said, or is that weird? And I said, no, I'd love to. You're alone, you're scared, no one's there yet. You're like, I would love to. And this was a really saving grace, I think.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
means a lot.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great point. Okay, so let's talk about like the first impressions.